name is David London. I'm the Executive Director of AACI, the Association of Americans and Canadians in Israel. Before I digress from my remarks to say that yesterday in Jerusalem, we had a phenomenal marathon. There were 50,000 runners from all over the world and all over Israel participating. It was an amazing event, and it was wonderful to see things like that happen in Jerusalem. On behalf of AACI, the Jerusalem Post, and the Jerusalem Great Synagogue, it is my pleasure to welcome you. I want to take a moment to thank the Jerusalem Great Synagogue and its chairman, Asher Shapiro, for their vision in partnering this evening. I want to take a second and wish, most of you recognize that Asher is not here this evening, to wish Asher and his wife Lenore a refuah shlema. They unfortunately were both recovering from a severe car accident. So refuah shlema to them. The Jerusalem Great Synagogue views its role in the Jerusalem community as one of inclusiveness and unity. In addition to its already inspiring tefillot, the synagogue hosts a range of wonderful programs, including its Lone Soldier Friday night Shabbat dinner. Just last night, the synagogue hosted 150 lone soldiers from all corners of the world who have made Israel their home. This program is in its sixth year and Asher asked me to tell you it needs community financial support to be able to continue. Checks can be made out to the Jerusalem Great Synagogue with a note indicating that it is for the Lone Soldiers program. This evening is the culmination of a series of election events throughout Israel, which included Tel Aviv, Beersheba, Netanya, and Ra'anana, and reached thousands of participants. This week will be a great week. Its greatness will be reflected in the fact that will be choosing the leadership for our country. A dream come true for the Jewish people. We will all have the honor and privilege to help choose that leadership and our future. We will do this from a place of knowledge and conviction that is imbued with love and respect for all people, for all the people of Israel and its citizens. We may be a small country, but we have a big vote. Most of us come from countries with slightly larger populations than Israel. Many of us felt that in those countries our votes didn't make much of an impact, but here in Israel, each and every vote is so important. For some of you, it's your first vote for the Knesset. For some, you voted many times. For me, it's around my 10th time, unfortunately, in only 20 years. The parties and leaders change from election to election, and that is why the public service, AACI, working with the Jerusalem Post, has been organizing these English-speaking election forums for over 30 years. Our goal is for you, the voter, to be able to go to the polls on Tuesday, March 17th, knowledgeable and informed about the parties and the candidates who are asking for your vote. In Jerusalem, AACI hosts some 200 activities monthly in our wonderful home, the Dr. Max and Gianna Glassman Family Center. Our activities throughout Israel, but especially in Jerusalem, make AACI the active hub of the English-speaking community in Jerusalem and around the country. The issues that drive AACI are spearheaded by our Aliyah, Klita, and Employment departments, who make the complex facts of life in Israel easier to understand and navigate for both the new Oleh and the veteran Oleh. AACI's strength is in providing crucial information and advocacy for the English-speaking community. AACI's Shira Pransky Health Project makes the Israeli healthcare system understandable and accessible. It cannot be in today's world that people do not receive the health rights and care they are entitled to because of language issues. 2015 brings new challenges, especially for U.S. citizens. There are many changes in IRS reporting requirements. To stay aware and up to date on critical information, AACI programs and activities, the Shira Pransky Health Project, our amazing kosher travel in Israel and abroad, and the many issues affecting dual citizens, subscribe to our e-newsletter, www.aaci.org.il. As always, AACI is here for you in both the good and not so good times. If you are not yet a member, we look forward to you joining the AACI family in the future. Before each election, journalists contact me trying to pigeonhole me about the English-speaking community and its voting patterns. I want to say loudly that the English-speaking vote, the English speakers vote across the entire spectrum of Israel's political parties. However, while we may have different political philosophies, we all voluntarily left our homes and came to live and build our lives in the state of Israel. What brought us here and keeps us here, even during these difficult times, is our strong love for Israel. So our political and religious views may not be the same, but what unifies us is our belief that we need to seriously fight against corruption, that the rule of law needs to apply to all of Israel's citizens, even more so to its politicians. Disrespect, incitement, and violence must be stopped and corrected. You, the candidates representing your parties seated behind me, are asking for our vote. Please know that the people you are addressing this evening passionately love our country. I hope you will conduct yourselves in a dignified manner and be worthy of their vote. Right-wing or left-wing, religious or secular, socialist or capitalist, voting Israel takes on a life of its own. Let's have a great evening listening and of course being respectful to each other, no matter our personal beliefs. In Israel's elections, there are many options to choose from, but the most important thing is to exercise your democratic right and vote for your party of choice. I'm proud to be introducing our moderators from the Jerusalem Post. Not only is he a great journalist, but he's also a great guy. Steve Lindy has been editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post for almost 4 years. He has worked at the newspaper for 18 years, as well as at Israel Radio English News for 21 years. Lahav Hakov has been Knesset correspondent for the Jerusalem Post for almost 4 years and shares her insights and analysis on current events in Israel, on radio and television stations around the world. Thank you all for coming, and I now turn the program over to them. Thank you.
Good evening, Shavua Tov, and thank you so much for coming. I will actually be handing over mostly to Lahav Hakov, our Knesset reporter, to moderate the debate. But I'd like to say a few words before we start. Thank you also to Asher Shapiro, and we wish him and his wife a refuah shlema. Thank you also to David London and ACI, to my assistant Sapir Peretz, and to the whole team of organizers for this wonderful event, which, as David said, is the culmination of all our debates, which have been at a really high level. I'd also like to mention the sad passing today of Leah Van Leer, the Grande Dame of the Jerusalem Cinematheque. I happened to be wearing this suit at our Jerusalem Post conference, and she gave me this cachet of lavender, which I still have in my pocket. May her memory be for a blessing. Baruch Dayan Emet. Tonight, the great debate. And as you can see, 7 of the major parties have sent really, I think, their best speakers, their most eloquent English speakers, to participate in this debate. And it's really my honor and privilege to welcome you all here today. As David said, we'd like to focus on the issues. We would not like to regress to what some of this election campaign has done, which is ad hominem attacks and rhetoric that is not appropriate, but in the great tradition of English and I think Jewish debate as well, we'd like to keep it on a high level, addressing substantive issues rather than personal attacks. So let me welcome our wonderful lineup. Knesset member Rabbi Dov Lipman from Yesh Atid. He really was the address for English speakers in the last Knesset, and we hope you will be in the next Knesset as well. In fact, we hope you will all be elected to the next Knesset.
More than 120 seats.
It's time to change the system. Ambassador Michael Oren from Kulanu. who almost certainly will get a seat in the next Knesset because he's high up on the Kulanu list, and perhaps he will be the new address for English speakers in the Knesset. Ayelet Shaked, Beit Yehudi, who's very high up on the list as well. I'm purposely not saying numbers because I don't think they mean anything, but Ayelet Shaked is a very special legislator, and I think is unusual in that she is secular in a party that's mostly considered religious. So welcome to you. Former cabinet minister, science and minister without portfolio, the wonderful Benny Begin. I'd like to welcome Ashley Perry from Yisrael Beitenu, British-born, unlike the Americans here. Ashley worked for many years with Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman in the Foreign Ministry and now has gone into politics, and we wish you all the best. Uri Zaki from Meretz, here on my right, but on the left of the table. And finally, Knesset member Nachman Shai from the Zionist Union, a good friend, a columnist in the Jerusalem Post, and as you remember, a former IDF spokesman who calmed us down at one stage. Maybe you can calm us down tonight as well. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Jerusalem Post Knesset reporter Lahav Arkov.
Uri here is the only one who didn't get a bio, so I'll just interject a little. He was the head of B'Tselem in the US, right? Okay. Among other things. We're going to begin with general statements. Everyone will have a few minutes to talk about why the people here in the audience should vote for your party. But before we begin, I just want to say in the spirit of what Steve said about avoiding ad hominem attacks and mudslinging, first of all, I'm going to ask all of you to only talk about your own party in the general statement and not attack anyone else. And over the course of the debate, if you mention anyone else or anyone else's party, that person will get a minute to respond. So just keep that in mind. You might be giving your opposition extra speaking time. The general format will be that I will bring up a general question about a topic, and you'll each get to say your position on the topic, and we'll probably have rebuttals. And I, and sometimes also Steve, may interject with follow-up questions about the things you say. So let's begin with general statements. I'll give each of you 3 minutes, and we'll go along the table, starting with Mr. Zaki.
Is it possible to stand here? If you want to.
Sure.
No, I mean physically. I mean, I think it's important because you know it's a big hole, but got you right. Yeah, thanks. Good evening, Shavua Tov to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. You know, this is one of the last, for sure the last English-speaking event, but one of the last events because we're only 3 days ahead towards the big day, Super Tuesday, if you like, of the Israeli election. I'm not sure it's right, but some folks told me, warned me that this might be an uneasy audience for me. I don't know whether it's right or not. We'll see according to the reaction I'm going to get. But nevertheless, I believe that everybody that you know lives in Israel appreciates the combination, the unique combination we have in Israel of being the national homeland of the Jewish people and a democracy. And Meretz stands for democracy, and Meretz is not shy about being the left of Israel. And the left is a concept that holds within it many ideas. You know, sometimes we fight, you know, in the Israeli debate, which flag to hoist, whether the political flag, the you know, the Israeli-Palestinian one, or the social-economical one, or the green one, and so on and so forth. For us, left means all that. The left in Israel, or the left in general, holds within it the notion of justice, of equality. And from that derive many ideas. First of all, the idea that there should be social solidarity in the state of Israel. That it's not right that a small percentage of the population gets so much of the wealth and the resources, and that there should be a different way of distributing Israel's resources, that the 99%, if you wish, would enjoy the fruit of the country. It also means, from the notion of equality, that we respect, the Jewish religion. I myself, oh, really? Well, I'll be very quick. I'm myself a person of faith, but nonetheless, we believe that the state and religion should be separated, and that would generate more respect for the Jewish faith and would allow people, for instance, who like to marry each other, if they're two guys, two women, so on and so forth, to do that. And of course, you see, there's some more than expected. And I'll just end with, of course, I'll just add with the notion that Israel's security and well-being is also connected to have peace with our neighbors. Thank you so much.
Okay, Ambassador Oren, please.
Be careful. On? On. Good. Erev Tov. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you to Jerusalem Post. Thank you to AACI. Thanks. I came here 40 years ago. Wow. 40 years. I lived around the corner. I lived on our Barbanel Street. I was Chayal Boded in the paratroopers. Today, 40 years later, I'm proud to be the world chairman of the Centers for Lone Soldiers, which meets in the Great Synagogue. And a couple weeks ago, I was delighted to have Kabbalat Shabbat dinner here with lone soldiers. So it's a great honor always to be involved with that. I came here from New Jersey. Anybody here from New Jersey? Yay. I always said I spent more time defending the state of New Jersey than defending the state of Israel. Perfectly good state. But I came with a conservative background, little Zionism. Nobody in my family made Aliyah. I don't have any family in this country other than the family sitting in the front row here. And I came out of a deep sense of Zionism. I came out of a deep sense of love for the Jewish people. And Zionism, for me, was always about responsibility. It was synonymous with Zionism. And taking responsibility for ourselves as a people, taking responsibility for our security, for our infrastructure, for our society. And as moving to a Zionist and Jewish state meant that the Jewish state could never turn its back on the weak, on the immigrant, on the aged, on the poor. That was inherent in my belief in this country. And I served it. I served it in various public capacities. I met my wife here while working at Israeli radio, by the way. Sally, say hi. In the front row, while working at Israeli radio. And we raised 3 kids in the southern part of the country in very difficult circumstances, 3 kids in one room. We knew what it was to struggle here. But when I came here in the 70s, we knew that if we worked hard enough, eventually we can get that little apartment and then expand it little room by room in the Israeli fashion. Today, when I have Israeli grandchildren, I'm not sure they'll have the same opportunities that we had. Not at all. Eventually, I became Israel's ambassador to the United States. I served there from 2009 to the end of 2013. An extraordinary privilege for me, but also great difficulty. One of the great difficulties I had there was meeting young Israelis, hundreds of them across the United States, who said to me, Mr. Ambassador, we don't care about doing Miluim, we don't care about the security situation, we want to go home, but we can't go home. Can you promise that if we go back to Israel, we'll be able to make a decent living, we'll be able to buy a home someday? And it tore my heart out. As someone who had gone that whole route the other way, from the United States to here, and struggled here to make it, to hear these wonderful young Israeli kids whom I couldn't say to go home because I could not promise them a future here that they could look forward to buying a house and making a respectable living. And when I came back to Israel, I met the parents of these kids who begged me to help them bring the kids back. I didn't have an answer for them. And so I met Moshe Kahlon. Moshe Kahlon, the head of the Kulanu party, devised a party. The only party that focuses on the monopolies that control this economy, that make your housing prices some of the highest in the world, your food prices some of the highest in the world.
Time.
2 seconds. That, to me, is the essence of the responsibility. This is a party that is taking responsibility. We'll talk more about the diplomatic segment. We're taking responsibility for the diplomatic level too. But a last word. We did not come back to this country after 2,000 years of exile to watch it die from for the price of housing and the price of groceries. And my party and myself, we're committed to preventing that from happening. That's our responsibility.
Thank you. Okay. Now, former Minister Benny Begin from Likud.
Well, it does. Shavua Tov. I'll try to describe, in short, of course, the basic issue and the basic division and the basic dividing line is between Israel, is of course between right and left. However, according to the same dividing line, the real difference is between right and wrong. And I'm saying that out of a long experience. I'm saying that in conjunction with what I feel would be the expectation from adults, from mature people, to sort out important issues from even more important issues. And when saying that, I mean to distinguish between two sorts of issues. One sort is what my friend, I think, am I risking, if I call Michael, then he has 1 minute, or I say the person on my left, okay, and I avoid the penalty.
If you say something negative, you get the rebuttal.
We heard Michael very eloquently describing social economic issues. What's typical of these issues is the following. When solutions are proposed or were proposed for these issues, these solutions are always reversible. You take a course, you take a decision, either you were wrong from the outset or situation and peripheral conditions changed, and you are free to go back to the drawing board and take a corrective step and rectify the problems. On the other hand, there are the higher or deeper political decisions that have to do with our basic defense and basic life. And we know of two recent examples in the last 20 years in which decisions have been taken or were taken, and there's no way back, essentially. They are irreversible.
Wrap up, please.
I'm sorry?
The 3 minutes are up, so just last couple
And
sentences.
or if you want to reverse, the price paid on that is actually prohibitive. Two examples, one the Oslo Agreement, then the bilateral, and then the unilateral withdrawal and relinquishing of the Gaza area, and the results are known to everyone. And since I know my friends and my colleagues in the left camp of Israel, and I respect them, and I take them seriously, I know, as you know, that the basic difference would be that they are ready, some of them are keen on putting Judea and Samaria on a giveaway table. This is dangerous.
Mr. Begin?
And this is the difference. And for that matter, I think Likud
Thank you.
stands strong on the right side. Thank you.
Okay, now we have MK Nachman Shai from Zionist Union. And just reminding everyone that we have 3 minutes each.
I have two responsibilities tonight. One is to address you, and B, to make sure that Benny Begin will not fall down somewhere, and he's a very dear friend of mine, and I do care for you. So I hope to carry both of them in the same success. Good evening, everyone, and Shavua Tov to you. I know I represent the minority tonight in this hall, but that doesn't mean that we are not right. We are not right, are we? So we stand right, I'm right to you at least, Benny. So never lose hope, even in this big hall. I used to live not far from here. I love this place, I love this city, and I will always come, even if one person in this audience will support me, at least is a good reason to come and try to convince you to do something which I believe in, which is to vote for Hamachaneh HaTzioni this time. Just think about it. What is it? Anyhow, we are at this time a new party, actually made of two old ones, the Ha'avodah and Hatnu'ah. Yitzhak Herzog and Tzipi Livni created a new political movement, which is now the only challenge to the Likud 6 years, actually 9 years in power. We believe it's time to change. It's time to change. I realize that in this corner, there is some hope. Thank you, guys. Thank you, appreciate it. Anyhow, the policies that we intend to take are different than the Likud's. When it comes to security, I think we are more or less on the same place. When it comes to Iran, we fully support the government policy towards Iran. We fully support, except the recent speech in Washington, that even my friend Michael Oren will agree with me that this was not the right time and the right place to carry this speech. Even Michael Oren will agree with me. But at the same time, I said, when it comes to Iran and to some other major security issues, we are carrying the same responsibility, and we share a very wide national consensus. We disagree on the government on one basic issue: how to save Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. We believe that the solution is two-nation state for two people. Unfortunately, the government, even following the famous Bar Ilan speech of the government, did not go this way. We intend to renew the negotiation between us and the Palestinians and try to reach that solution, not for the benefit of the Palestinians, but for the sake of having a Jewish democratic state that you all were born on or made aliyah to, because I believe this is what Zionism is all about. And on the other front, because I know I'm running out of time, I want to say that we intend to take care of the socio-economic situation in this country, which deteriorated in the past 6 years. We have to create a better Israel where most of the people will share the same life conditions, and there will be no poverty as much as it is now. There is a lot of things to say about that, and I hope I will have time to explain how we intend to do that. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Begin will have a chance to give his rebuttal when I ask a question about U.S. relations and Iran. Right now, for the opening statements, I want to remind everyone to talk about your own parties and not everyone else's. So now to Ayelet Shaked from Bayit Yehudi.
Good evening to everybody, Shavua Tov. I'm glad to be here. Actually, I've been here in the Shabbat, and I came also to this synagogue. It was very nice. So the Jewish Home actually is the only party today who said loud and clearly that we object a Palestinian state. We are not afraid to say both in Israel and around the world that we are not agree to give any inch of the land of Israel to the Arabs, no more. And we are saying it in Israel, in Europe, and in the US as well. We respect the US, we think they are our best allies, and the relationship between Israel and the US are very important. It's strategic allies, and we know that, we owe them a lot. But it's not necessarily said that we need to agree on everything. So when it's come to Israeli security and Israeli destiny, we definitely have our own views. You know that Einstein defined insanity that you are trying to do the same action over and over again and look for different results. So no more, we finished with the insanity of Oslo. Thank you. Regarding the economy, we believe in free economy with social sensitivity. Mr. Bennett, in his Ministry of Economy in those last 2 years, broke monopolies, encouraged competition in the market with few steps that he did, and actually the expense rate came down in 5%, the expenses rate. So we just need more time in order to continue and do it. Also, regarding the Jewish identity of the state, we are a bridge between the secular, the Orthodox, and the ultra-Orthodox. It's important to us to strengthen the Jewish identity and the Jewish root and tradition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member of Knesset Shaked is always succinct, so it's hard to interview her, but it's good to be for when I'm a moderator. And now MK Rabbi Dov Lipman of Yesh Atid.
Thank you so much, Shavua Tov. It's an honor to be here, and also an honor to be on this stage with two members of Knesset who I worked with over the last few years, and with all the people here. One of the things you learn in Knesset is that even if there are ideological disagreements and differences of opinion, everyone that's there is working to try to make things better for the Jewish people, each one in their own way, and therefore to everyone here. It's really an honor to be together with you. Shir HaMa'alot B'Shuv Adonai Shivat Zion Hayinu Kechomim. Hayinu Kechomim. After 2,000 years, we've returned to our homeland. All of us in this room understand the magnitude of what that means, and all of us came here to try to play our part in making the state of Israel better and improve the Jewish people. For me personally, the fulfillment of that dream took on whole new meanings 2 years ago, when I had the honor to be elected to the Knesset and to serve as the first native English speaker in the Knesset in 30 years, and to enter the Knesset together with the most remarkable group of people who shared that vision. Olim from all different backgrounds, men, women, Sephardic, Ashkenazic, religious, secular, working together to try to solve problems in Israel. And because we had that passion, we were able to accomplish so much more in a year and 8 months than I can ever imagine. In the time we have here, I can't go down the entire list. I ask all of you to make sure to get flyers on your way out to see what we've done. And after we're done here tonight, go home and go on the Yesh Atid website and see in English on the links for reforms all the things that we've done. But very briefly, one thing which we promised 2 years ago, the integration of the Haredi community into Israeli society, where we have a draft law which says that we work towards a point where everybody serves the Jewish people together with unity, where we focus on employment. I'm the head of the Knesset task force to help Haredim get to work, and we get an average of 500 resumes per month from Haredim who are saying it's time to leave wherever they are in yeshiva or kollel to support their families with dignity, and we help them get training and help them find work. And that's not only a financial, economic issue, but it's also a unity issue for all of us. And general studies in the Haredi schools, something which hasn't been dealt with in decades, and we finally broke through that, and it's happening, and it's wonderful to see Haredi young boys getting English and math and giving the chance for a future in terms of higher education. To get 1 billion shekel to Holocaust survivors, the first comprehensive national project for Holocaust survivors who now finally get medication for free, dental care for free, optical care for free, and the money goes right into their accounts to help them with no bureaucracy. That's what it means to be a Jewish people who returned home. And finally, number 3, a massive fight against corruption, to get rid of the concept, which we abolished by law, of minister without portfolio, small, efficient government. This is what it is about making this country better. And one last word, Lahav, before you tell me my time is up, and that is Olim. Finally, a focus on making things better for all Olim, including English-speaking Olim, where we abolished a theory test for people who've been driving for years and now can get their license here without having to take a theory test, making it easier for nurses to come to Israel and Aliyah without having to take their licensing when they first come here, but beforehand, and so on, and so on, and so on. The list goes on. I ask all of you to listen to the issues tonight. Hopefully we'll have a positive, uplifting debate, and like I said before, focus on the action. People who are there with passion and Zionism to get things done, and hopefully that will bring you over towards our party, towards Yesh Atid. Thank you so much.
And finally, we have Ashley Perry from Yisrael Beitenu.
Thank you. Shavua Tov. Is this working? Yes. There's been a lot of vagaries, a lot of empty slogans in this election period so far, so it's time to talk Tachlis. Last Wednesday, exactly 4 years ago, 2 Arab terrorists infiltrated the Yishuv of Itamar. We all know what happened. There was a vicious slaughter of a family, including 2 parents and 3 children, including the almost decapitation of a 3-month-old baby while she slept. These 2 terrorists were thankfully apprehended and brought before trial. The military prosecuting attorney thought about imposing the death sentence, or at least asking for the death sentence, but decided against it. When they were found guilty, the military judge again thought about imposing the death sentence, which has never ever been imposed except for one man in the history of the State of Israel, Adolf Eichmann. So he thought about the death penalty because this was such a heinous and vicious crime, but he rejected it. These 2 people are now sitting in prison, and if precedent is anything to go by, they can earn degrees, they can get married, they can have parties, they can hold office like Marwan Barghouti. They can hope with pretty good cause that eventually they will get out by some sort of trade. Yisrael Beitenu has said the first law that we will pass in the next Knesset is the death penalty for vicious terrorist murders. We want to take the decision-making. Once someone has been found guilty, there isn't a decision to be made by the judge anymore. You can't give life sentences or maybe this kind of sentence or the death sentence. We are taking that decision-making process out of their hands. There is one decision to be made. When you viciously murder Jews in their bed, in their sleep, death penalty. That is it. That is the only decision that can be made. This will return deterrence because too many people have looked at the 4,000 terrorists that have been released over the last few years and in the hope, there used to be this belief that don't give them the death penalty because they want the death penalty, they want death, they expect death. Not anymore. They go in knowing, wait a few years, get your degree, get married, and you'll be back in our terrorist infrastructure within a few years, thinking about perpetrating the next one as many of the terrorists released have. So if you want the death penalty for terrorists, and it's uncomfortable for me as a person from England, where we don't have a death penalty, to talk about this issue, but we've tried everything else. We need to disincentivize terrorism. We need to disincentivize those who are thinking now how they can kill us, how they can destroy whole families. We need the death penalty, and we need it now. Vote Yisrael Beitenu, and the first law that we will bring to the next Knesset is death penalty for vicious terrorists. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to begin now with questions. I'm going to ask a general question for all the candidates, and they'll each get a turn to answer. And like I said, we will have rebuttals if anyone says something negative about anyone else. And I may intervene with my own questions. I let you all go free in your general's opening statements, but I'm not going to let inaccuracies slide for the rest of the hour that we have. So we're going to start out with the topic that public opinion polls say is most important to Israeli voters. I haven't seen a public opinion poll what's most important to Anglo voters, so this is the general Israeli population, and hopefully the rest of you feel the same, just because it's what's first. We're going to start with housing and the cost of living. And I'd like everyone who was part of the last coalition, and we'll include Yesh Atid in that because they were there until the last few days, my question for the people who are part of the coalition is, well, this was a major issue in the last election too, and what has your party done to bring a change or not bring a change in the last 2 years, and what do you plan to do moving forward? And with the opposition, what do you plan to do differently to lower the cost of living and especially the cost of housing, which has continued to rise? I think we'll start with Ashley, since he was last. 2 minutes each.
2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. The government knows how to spend your money. A lot of my colleagues and a lot of election campaigns will tell you how we're going to spend your money, and they'll say, we'll lower the cost of living by doing this, we'll raise this, we'll lower this. I'm going to tell you, Yisrael Beitenu, how we can make money. In Yisrael Beitenu's government ministries, we have made money. How have we done that? Since we took over the tourism ministry 6 years ago, there were about 150,000 tourists coming to Israel every year. Today, there's 750,000 tourists coming every year. For every extra 100,000 tourists, there are 4,000 jobs. There are tens of millions added to the budget. Another thing, Aliyah. Many of you may have come through the Nefesh B'Nefesh. Well, that funding came from the Ministry of... Nefesh B'Nefesh definitely deserve a round of applause. The funding for Nefesh B'Nefesh, large parts of it came from the Ministry of Immigrant Absorption. I think Nefesh B'Nefesh did a great survey a couple of years ago and figured out since they were around, which has coincided and enlarged between Yisrael Beitenu's control of the ministry, I think the Olim have contributed something like 10 billion extra shekels to the budget. And that is large part because of the investment by the Immigrant Absorption Ministry. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of things. We like to talk tachlis. I'm not going to throw out slogans. Two issues, two laws that we're going to pass. One is, I know many of you pay exorbitant rent because you quite simply can't find the down payment to pay 33% of the payment of a house, right? At the moment, the law is you have to find 33%, a third. Many people can't. What we're going to say is those who serve their country, those who contribute to society, will get a 90% mortgage. You only have to find 10%. The government will subsidize the difference between the current amount, which is 66%, and 90% for those who serve their country. Another thing is, I don't know about you, but I have 4 kids, and my wife and I, we're always talking about who's going to get home in time for their kids, for Tzaron, etc., etc. And sometimes we can't even afford Tzaron. Yisrael Beitenu says every single person who serves their country, every single person who contributes by working and paying taxes will get free Tzaron from the age of 6 months to the age of 6, because then we can ensure more people will come into the workforce. A husband and wife can both work full-time.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you very much.
I have a follow-up question for you. Something that I've been thinking about since Orly Levy proposed her 90% mortgage proposal. How is that different from the subprime mortgages that destroyed the U.S. economy?
First of all, that was a symptom of the problem. That wasn't the problem itself. And second of all, the government is only going to insure for those who can prove that they're able to. We're not talking about giving everybody. One of Yisrael Beiteinu's basic principles is those who contribute to society should benefit most. At the moment, we have this absurd situation where those who contribute least are benefiting most. For 66 years this has been happening in Israel. It's about time a party came along and said, we've got to change this. Those who contribute to society should benefit most of society. So those who can prove that they work 125%, who can prove that they can pay the mortgage payments, will get a little bit of extra help from the government. So it's markedly different to what happened in the US. And we want to incentivize people to go out and work. We want to incentivize people to contribute to society, because enough of those members of society who contribute least benefiting most. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, MK Lippman, please tell us what Yesh Atid has done for the economy and what it plans to do moving forward.
Absolutely. It's an amazing thing. We came into office and immediately discovered that we were dealing with a 40 billion shekel deficit. I'll never forget, Yair Lapid sat with us and said, we have to pass our first budget. It's going to be a difficult budget. We'll be unpopular. We're going to make cuts all across the board, but get things back on track and reduce the deficit and the deficit target. And that's what we did. And then for a year, we planned a 2015 budget. a budget which was supposed to pass for this January 1st with an increase of over 10 billion shekel to all the social ministries, 4 billion to health, 3 billion to education, 2 billion shekel increase to welfare to take 190,000 of the senior citizens of this country and bring them above the poverty line. Now this sounds like a campaign promise when I tell you that we want to do all that without raising taxes and this whole budget, where is that? Well, this is the budget. This is what a state budget looks like. We spent a year planning this budget. It is ready to go. The key is in the ignition. We want to get back in office and do that. It will bring down the cost of housing drastically and especially help the neediest in society. Our philosophy is take the neediest and help them, and those who are capable, get them to work. Exactly what I opened with before, especially within the Haredi community, but in general, get people out to the point where they can go to work. Now the amazing thing is, you can do that without raising taxes. How do you do that? This booklet explains how. It's by fighting corruption. There is money everywhere, and it's being wasted and going to all the wrong places. But when you say, we're going to fight corruption, and we're going to go and get the money from hidden profits of corporations, we're going to make sure the government is not spending your money without knowing where it's going, then you're able to have an incredibly social-minded budget. That is not just a campaign promise. It's here. It's ready to go, and we look forward to get back into office and getting that budget passed, which will bring down the cost of living dramatically for all of you and for all of Israel.
Go ahead, Ayelet Shaked.
Okay, I just need to say something to Mr. Perry. There is life sentence already. Okay, so there is a death penalty. Sorry. There is a death, it's not mandatory, but there is a death penalty. Last time, a judge...
Mr. Perry, you'll get a rebuttal.
Just a second, it's important. In 94, a terrorist got a death penalty, but unfortunately, it was changed to life sentence, and he was released in Shalit deal. The problem is that the persecution is not asking for a death penalty, and not that the law is not good. Regarding house rating, the housing minister Uri Ariel did exactly what we need to do. He increased the supply in order to meet the demand. This year, he released to the market 50,000 units of housing. The demand, by the way, is 40,000. And unfortunately, in the first Netanyahu government and in Olmert government, they released between 20,000 and 30,000. This is why we have a problem today. So what we need to do is to increase the supply in order to meet the demand. Next year, Uri Ariel is planning to release to the market 60,000 houses, and I think that this is the right way. Not to put some populistic laws that actually not meeting the economy law. We need to increase the supply and also to do Mechir Matara. I don't know if you know, target price, yeah. This is what he did as well. And target price with increasing the supply, I hope in a year or two will solve this problem, because it's definitely the most severe issue that there is in the Israeli economy.
Mr. Perry, you have a minute to respond.
I actually think the answer to the question that MK Shaked brought up is actually found in this week's parasha. Today we read again about the details of the Mishkan. Why do we read about the details of the Mishkan when we read about them a few parashiot ago? And a lot of our sources tell us something very, very, very clever, I think, even. First of all, you put the principles down, the theoretical principles. And then, once you actually have the points that you're talking about, the Mishkan, then you have to put them into action. For 66 years, we had the principle, we had the theory of the death sentence. Now it's time to put it into practice, and we're going to take the decision-making out of the judge's hand, because it's one of many options that they have, and give them one option. For a vicious and heinous mass murder of Jews, there is only one option, the death penalty. That is not the current state of affairs today.
Okay, thank you. Now, MK Shai, please tell us about Zionist Union's plan for the cost of living and housing.
Okay. One thing I would like to mention that you probably noticed that in some issues we do share the same view between us. Something I would like to mention tonight is that my colleague Ayelet and myself are sharing the leadership of the lobbying for the release of Jonathan Pollard from the American jail. And we've been urging the government as much as we could. We did everything. Uri, my friend, is sitting here in the hall, is pushing us very hard as well. And let's hope very much that it will happen as soon as possible, because we know in this case we are running out of time. Yeah, let's pray. Anyhow, to the question. We intend, there's a basic difference, I said before, between us and the government. We believe that a free market economy is essential, but at the same time, if it doesn't work, the government should interfere. The government should take the lead. The government should find out what are the reasons for this shortage of housing or the cost of living, and the reason is mainly a lack of competition. That's the point. There's no competition. If there's no competition, prices are not going down. They are either staying or where they are or even going up. That's what the government should do. The very fact is that in the past year, the cost of living rose by 5%. We intend to take the lead. And we intend to be involved. And we intend, if necessary, even to build by the state, something which hasn't happened for a long time. The last time the government built by itself was over 20 years ago, when the bulk of the Russian Jews came to Israel, and we had to find solutions for them as soon as possible, housing solutions. And one of the ideas was, and it was actually completed by that government, hundreds of thousands of houses and units were built just for the sake of helping them to settle as soon as possible. I'm not sure we are going to do that in the same scope, but this is just an example of what the government should do. The same applies to other markets in Israel. They need that regulation is not enough. We have to find out what are the roots of the crisis and take care. That's the basic difference between us and the government, and we hope very much, we believe that it will help at least for the time being, and then we can release this intervention and let the market run again. That's exactly what we intend to do. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question for you, because I'm hearing two contradictory ideas in your answer, which is you're saying that it's important to have competition to lower the prices, and then you're saying that the government should be building and the government should be, I thought you said, setting prices.
If we realize, we have a full plan how to build and how to bring the prices down. If those solutions won't work, and it's all very detailed in our political and economic platform that has thus been out, and by the way, I urge my friend Benny Begin to tell you why the Likud has no political platform. Why? Because I think that if you want, I think, and I believe I wrote this platform by myself with a team of experts, and my question is why the Likud doesn't have a platform, which is so much important. Okay, he will answer, not you. Secondly, to your question, we'll take different steps, and it will be done according to certain assessment. If this solution doesn't work, we'll move one step further. But we all understand that especially the young generation of Israel, people that we are hoping very much that we wouldn't lose, that will stay in the country and won't go anywhere out of the country, will have to get certain solutions for housing in reasonable prices in order to live in this country and not to go anywhere else.
Thank you. I'm going to give Mr. Begin an extra minute since there was a question asked here. We're not taking audience questions. I don't know if we said that in the beginning, but since we had a, I suppose, negative remark about the Likud, then Mr. Begin will get an extra minute so he could talk about that as well.
Platforms are important. Platforms may be important, but they are a song for the future. Likud can demonstrate real achievements on the ground. I think it's the best and most reliable platform you can have. And this issue, I think, shows you clearly the difference between image, propaganda, and facts on the ground. I'll give you several examples. People tell me that you don't take statistics with you to the grocery store. But statistics are important, the numbers are important. People take for granted the fact that unemployment rate here in Israel is one of the lowest in the Western countries, say about 5.2%. Please note, each percent point of unemployment represents 32,000 people employed or unemployed. Had it been 6%, still low, even 7%, still not high, it would mean an addition of 30 or 60,000 people unemployed, but people take it for granted that unemployment rate is so low. Price index went down in the year 2014. People don't know it, people don't care. People say, well, but I have a difficulty going to the grocery store and pay the check for whatever I bought there. Here's another achievement, very important from not only the economic but the social point of view. A great decision pushed by Prime Minister Netanyahu when I served in his cabinet, which is to transfer army camps from the central part of the country to the Negev. We allocated at the time about 18 or 19 billion shekels for that. This is not a dream, it's being realized right now. Some camps are already constructed, more are to come. Some of them represent the most advanced, high-tech issues tackled by army units. They're going to draw with them high-tech computer whizzes from Herzliya and Kfar Saba. The Negev is going to have totally different face within 8 or 10 years. Yes, it takes time. Unemployment rate there is going to decrease drastically, dramatically. More jobs are going to be created. And last but not least, they are going to evacuate some areas in the central part of the country, in the main areas of demand, in order to afford more and more areas for the construction of new apartments.
Your time is
Let
up.
me agree in a minute. In
Less than a
20
minute,
seconds.
please.
In 20 seconds. I do agree with Ayelet here that Uri Ariel is doing a great job as the Minister of Housing. Please, I would add that he can base the number of apartments on work previously done and efforts previously successful of the previous government. But let me note that if Likud does not close the gap between Likud and Labor, as demonstrated in the recent polls, Uri Ariel, with myself and Ayelet, are going to be sitting in the opposition. Please note, this is a must. Vote Likud, otherwise the great work done would not continue. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Ambassador Oren from a party that was founded for this express
Before you
purpose.
start my clock, just a word about, I fully support what Nachman said and Ayelet's efforts on behalf of Jonathan Pollard. I was the last Israeli official to visit Jonathan in prison. You don't want to do this. It's terribly traumatic, and we have to do everything in our possible. It's not right, it's not left. We have to get Jonathan home. But having said that, this election is not about right and left. It is about existential issues. But it's not about the Iranian nuclear threat. It's not about terror. It's not even about the Palestinian issue. You talk about statistics, Benny. Overwhelming statistics of the state of Israel show that Israelis believe that the greatest threats to this country are the social gaps and the high price of housing, the high price of food, the high cost of living. Simple. We're talking about social gaps that are among the largest in the world. I hear everyone talk about how wonderful the Israeli economy is. I wonder if we're living in the same state. We're talking about the largest social gaps in the world next to Chile and Mexico. 20% of the population living beneath the poverty line. Yeah, people are employed, but do you know what poverty is in the state of Israel? It's 2,800 shekels per month on your paycheck. If you make 2,801 shekels in the state of Israel, you're not impoverished. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. 36% of the children beneath the poverty line. It's a busha for a Jewish state. Busha. Housing, people are building houses all over the place. We have 125,000 unit deficit in housing. Next year it'll be 170,000. 250,000 housing units bogged down in bureaucracy. Housing prices from 2008 and to 2013 go up 55%. Under the last government, went up 17% in 2 years. Rents 80% in the central part of the country. Who can live here? And people are earning exactly the same amount of money. You are talking about an existential threat, and there's only one way to address the existential threat. That is by going at the root cause, not by cutting off VAT, not by building in the middle of the Negev where there's no infrastructure, no jobs. Only one way, and it's to break up the monopoly of the Israel Land Authority, which is a state monopoly. It's to break up the monopoly over the banks, which charge an average of 3,000 shekels per year for an Israeli family. That's a month's salary for a lot of people. On charges and commissions that you would never pay in the United States. Now, you pay money to deposit a check in your bank here. You pay money to take it out. It's crazy. There are 2 credit card slickers in this country. All the banks control your credit cards. Only one party is coming out with a platform that is talking about dismantling the monopolies. That's what it's about. One party. And you're all going to shake your heads, but I haven't seen anybody else touch a monopoly here in the last 2 years. None. They're all there. They're all exactly the same place. Have you touched a bank? Have you touched the 5 companies that control all the food on your market shelf? Have you touched the 2 monopolies that control all the import of food in this country? Not one.
Time.
Not one. If we don't do it, folks, that is the existential threat facing this country. This party, Kulanu Party, is here to make sure you stay here. That's what we're about, making sure you and your kids stay here. Period.
So I said that I'm not going to let people get away with inaccuracies. So as Uri here was shaking his head, Meretz also has a platform about breaking the bank monopoly. And Naftali Bennett has been working on breaking other monopolies. Concrete, I believe, was one of them. And I'm sure other parties have things to say about that, but we will move on to...
Food prices went down 3.6% because people can't afford to buy food, not because no one broke up a monopoly. That's true. It didn't go down 5.5%.
It's just not true. The food prices went down in 5% this year.
Down because people can't afford to buy food.
It's not true.
That's why.
It's just
not
not
because
true.
you did anything.
It's just not true. We did a lot of things, and it's just not true. Also, Naftali Bennett broke the cement monopoly. It's just not true.
It is
Yeah.
You didn't touch any of the monopolies.
MK Lipman has something
People can't
quick.
afford to buy milky, so they buy bread.
Well, everyone has
not
things to
true. I
say.
can
All
give
right,
you a
everyone
list
gets like 2 sentences, and then we move on to Uri.
I can give you a list of things that Bennett did in the economy ministry, included breaking the monopolies, breaking cartels, and other things. And this is why the food prices went down in 5%.
Okay, MK Lipman.
The Tao report says that the food prices went down because people don't have food, don't have money to buy food. That is the only single reason.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I am taking control. Thank you, MK Shai. MK Lipman had something quick to say, probably about what his party did.
Just 5 seconds, because a statement was made that no other party has in their platform. This is our platform book, 273 pages, 26 chapters. Page 31, clearly the plan dismantling monopolies. So let's make sure that we all speak truth, and it's right over here in the platform, a major part of our efforts as well.
Dear Dov, did you break up a single monopoly?
All right. Last one, Mr. Ambassador Oren, please. Yes.
We're in Israel.
One sentence. Yeah, just be quick.
Yisrael Beiteinu's agricultural minister broke up the dairy products monopoly, so let's keep facts where they are.
Okay. Now, Meretz, I'll give you like an extra 30 seconds because this got out of hand.
You know, it's interesting, this debate, and Michael, I must say, you know, you said this election is not about right and left. If you think that right and left in Israel are only the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, then you're right. But it's much deeper than that. And what we see in the outgoing Netanyahu-led coalition are 5 shades of gray of a right-wing economical point of view. And this debate, I'm sorry, I don't know whether the prices, the food prices went down in 2.6 or 2.7%, but we all know how the Israeli economy looks like, and more than that, how all of us are struggling in one way or another, some of us much more. And it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that in the US, when you're there, and people are making much more money, everything is cheaper. That doesn't make any sense. You know, at the social protest of 2011, we said, "Zo lo ta'ut, zo mediniyut." It is not a mistake, it is a policy. That's exactly the problem. What Israel needs is a new economical deal, a new deal, to change the whole way the economical thinking of Israel works. By the way, since Mr. Netanyahu was the Minister of Finance in 2003 and adopted Republican-style ideas that wrecked the Israeli welfare state. Now, I'm very close to many of the ideas that Nachman raised, that the Zionist Union raised. My only problem is what I fear is that in 2, 3, or 4 years, when we'll be here next, Nachman will be also here to defend the outgoing coalition that all of the parties here are going to be part of. What we need is a real change in Israel. We need another prime minister, but we need a different coalition. That's why you have to vote for Meretz for a true change. Thank you.
Thank you. You didn't even need the extra time. So my next question, since you already brought up comparing Netanyahu to a Republican, I think that everyone at this table, or almost everyone at this table, is somewhat concerned about the deal that the world powers are working on with Iran. I think that there's a almost consensus on right and left that it's not what Israel would ideally want. On the other hand, there's criticism that the way Netanyahu has responded to this deal that's being written is turning Israel into a partisan issue in the US. And so I would like the candidates here to sort of address both sides of it. First of all, how Israel should be working on Iran, and also how Israel should be dealing with its greatest ally, America, which is working on something that's at least against the current government's views on Iran. And I think that we'll start with Mr. Begin. We'll start in the middle and work our way outward.
You didn't understand the question.
Okay.
Is it a question?
It's a question. The question is this.
Please turn to us because through the microphone, to the loudspeakers, it's very difficult.
Okay. How should Israel be responding to the deal that the world powers are making with Iran? And has Israel's current response to it, is it damaging the US-Israel relationship? How should we be dealing with the US-Israel relationship in relation to Iran? Do you want to start with someone else? אתה מתחיל, שאלה לכולם.
This is a country of miracles, and one of them took place about 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago. Until that time, I heard from all corners of the political arena that concerning the Iranian threat, Prime Minister Netanyahu inflates the issue, exaggerates, threatens without real basis. And only about 2 months ago, when the issue of his invitation by Speaker of the House, John Boehner, to Washington, suddenly you hear a consensus. Yes, we all agree the threat is real. The only issue is should or shouldn't he go to Washington. I think it's one of the nicest results of a campaign. Usually political campaigns spoil things. And here, with this miracle, now Mr. Netanyahu created a consensus on the threat in Israel. Thank God for that. And thank Mr. Netanyahu for that. I saw the speech on TV, and I would note 1 minute, or maybe it took 2 minutes. Mr. Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, in his speech included some issues that are motherhood and apple pie, everyone agrees to, and he received applause, and even standing applause. So that's not the real test. When one of the tests came is when he presented 3 different conditions, or rather preconditions, to the signing of agreement between the 6, I don't know, this 5 plus 1 is ancient, you don't need it. The 6 and it goes back to 1946 or 7. And Iran would be that they stop their subversion in the world, that they should stop their attempts to dominate the Middle East, and the last one, that they should stop, of course, calling for the destruction of the State of Israel. Now,
Thank you.
it would have been very nice, if Congress applauded with standing ovation following the presentation of the 3 arguments. No, you remember it. After each one taking issue with the administration, the whole Congress almost rose to their feet, and was a great power to that standing ovation. And I think by that, Prime Minister Netanyahu demonstrated that he has been a great national asset for the State of Israel.
Okay, your time
with
is up.
With the important influence that he has in the American Congress.
Thank you. I'm going to let MK Shaked go next just because she has to leave. So you just give your answer. You have 2 minutes, and then we'll go to the regular order of things.
Okay, so first of all, Bennett, I think, did a tremendous job in the U.S. He went there mainly to interview in the U.S. media and to support the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's step by going to the Congress and say what he has to say. I think that the importance of this act was to explain the world that the agreement is bad. Now everyone knows in the world that the agreement is bad. It's very important also to get legitimation in the future. So right now I think everyone knows that the agreement is bad, and it's very important thing that the Prime Minister did. I just want to add something that Mr. Begin said before, to vote to the Likud. I think we should, the white wing camp in Israel need to vote to the Jewish home, because only a big Jewish home will prevent unity government. Otherwise, we will all sit, my friends and I will sit in the opposition, and there will be a left-wing party. The Jewish home will recommend on Netanyahu when we are going together to the president, and it will be a one unified bloc of the white wing. But if the Jewish home will not be big enough, then the danger of unified government is really, really dangerous.
Okay. Thank you both for your response on Iran and your lesson in civics. Next, we will have Ambassador Oren.
Needless to say, I have a lot to say about this. Anybody who participates for nearly 5 years in the most intimate discussions with the United States over the Iranian nuclear program cannot come away from those discussions with any other conclusion that the Iranian nuclear program presents not one but several existential threats to the state of Israel. So there's no difference. I don't think I probably speak for the entire table here. There's no difference between right and left on this as well. The Iranian nuclear threat is a multiple existential threat to the state of Israel. The question is, how do you address it? How do you address it? And it's certainly incumbent on any Israeli leader to do his or her utmost to prevent that from happening. But it's also incumbent on every Israeli leader to do his or her utmost to preserve bipartisan support in the United States of America, which is a paramount Israeli strategic interest. There's no substitute for the United States as our essential ally. There's no substitute for Israel as an ally of the United States as well, but no substitute. And when dealing and thinking strategically in our region, we have to think not only that we provide ourselves with a military Iron Dome, and I was privileged to bring the support for Iron Dome, nearly $1 billion, but we have to think about a diplomatic Iron Dome. If chas v'chalila, we have to go to war against Hezbollah tomorrow, and we know that we cannot take out the 100,000 rockets of Hezbollah from the air, that we're going to have to send our army into Lebanon, and it's going to be a long and difficult war, who's going to back us? Who's going to protect us in the UN? Who's going to send us vital supplies of ammunition? Last summer, we didn't get them. We didn't get them. So the question is whether this particular speech at that time, and by the way, he could have given the speech next week, and it still would have been before the deadline for the nuclear talks, but nobody would have conflated it in the United States with Israeli elections, and we could have created the impression this had nothing to do with elections, that this is truly an existential threat. That was a problem, was with the impression created. And we don't know whether it achieved the goal, because there was a tremendous gulf between Democrats in Congress and the president. Now we see the Democrats rallying around the president. Is that good for Israel? That we insinuated ourselves in that way. No difference about the issue, difference about the timing and the place. That is it. At the end of the day, we are still going to be left with a terrible threat. It's a bad deal on Iran, and we have to think about it strategically and smartly, how we do this together with the United States, not in opposition to part of the United States.
Thank you. Next, we'll have MK Shai from Zionist Union.
Before you speak, let me just introduce Uri Bank, who has replaced Ayelet Shaked, who had to leave.
Actually, there's no replacement to Ayelet Shaked, but Uri is a fine guy. And now no women on the panel, which is
I'm here, I'm representing.
you are, no, you are not included on the panel.
True.
Love. Anyhow, Michael, you are ready to the right coalition, I think. I mean, what's wrong in Ben is, because you just...
They are ready.
Everyone's decided which coalition we're going.
Their coalition, right.
Okay, I don't know why to say that, because in what I've just heard from Michael is the best description of how damaging the speech was in... Oh, listen to me, please, okay? I said before, and I keep saying, that we share the same concern about nuclear Iran. The same concern, and we've been doing in any way we could, including my role in the past Knesset was to represent the Knesset in the European Council and so on and so forth. Everywhere we went, we carried the same message. But I think that to go to Washington and to challenge the President of the United States from the White House, from the Congress to the White House, how long it is, 1 mile or whatever, okay? And to get into the Democrats and Republican discussions and fighting, inner fighting about many issues, and to embarrass the American Jewish community, challenging their loyalty. Guys,
Let's maintain civility. You wouldn't like it if people booed you.
I like it. And finally, AIPAC, which is playing such an important role in the American political scenery, and also to create a situation which their job will be much harder now than it was before. The message was the right one. But as I said before, you're not going to Washington and carrying such an anti-presidential message from the Congress. You will never do it, because there is always tomorrow. Tomorrow and the day after. We'll keep We need America in so many international fora. We need them in the Israeli...
Dealing with the Iranian issue. And no one can question the fact that he deserves immense credit.
I do. So why did he do that? Why did he go to Congress
You can
to
deny-
challenge
you
the
can-
president who has the power to do that? Why did he do so?
This is a person who has worked
Stop
for 20
being an
years.
ambassador,
I'm
Michael.
not being
You're
ambassador.
no longer an ambassador.
All right,
Stop
all right,
doing that.
all right.
It's not...
You think you'd have the sanctions today you'd have without the contributions of Benjamin Netanyahu? That's period. I disagree with him. I have the credibility of saying this was this. I disagree with this
wanted
decision.
to stop it, you know, Benny's father
But-
did something to stop a nuclear
But
program.
you can't deny his
He
sincerity.
always
You
talks.
can't.
He always talks and does nothing.
Let's leave nepotism out. let's leave parents out of this. Next, MK Lippman.
I sat in the Knesset for a year and 8 months and was honored by the speaker for the highest level of attendance. And I'm mentioning that because I sat there day in and day out, and there is a consensus issue in the Knesset, and that is the everyone together in unity against the developing deal in Iran, and that if it ever reaches a point where Israel has to do whatever Israel has to do, Israel will do whatever it has to do. However, we were critical of the Prime Minister's speech in Congress at the time that it was in particular, and I want to tell you, I got messages and phone calls from leaders of Jewish American groups in Washington, leaders, people who are even Netanyahu supporters, saying, what is going on over here? How are we supposed to deal with this? See what you can do to try to stop the speech at this time in this environment. Members of Congress who we were lobbying to try to make sure we had a 2/3 majority to override a presidential veto of a new sanctions bill, who contacted us and said, we support Israel, we love Israel, we want to help Israel, but this is putting us in an impossible position. So sometimes, it feels very good to see the Prime Minister stand there, and I sat there, I also felt good. It feels good. Bravado, strength, Zionism. But sometimes with all of that, it actually causes Israel security damage. And I want to move from Iran for a moment because it relates to Iran, and that's Hasbara in general. There needs to be a well thought out strategy from the top down in the Israeli government all the way to the people on Facebook to help us with Hasbara. We put a law forward in the 19th Knesset. It's ready to go. It got hung up because of a fight between the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister over who will be in charge. We need to make sure it's part of our platform that we don't reach a point where we need to make a speech down the block from the White House against the President, but where we're working hard throughout the world on creating the image that Israel needs to have, strong, safe, secure Israel with a real strategy at work so that we're never found in that panic mode.
Thank you. Mr. Perry from Yisrael Beitenu.
As advisor to the Foreign Minister for the last 6 years, I was also in many of these meetings, not just with the US, but with many of our friends around the world. And there's no doubt that the Iranian threat is very real, and it's a grave threat, and there really is a consensus issue. But before we talk about ridding ourselves of the Iranian threat in Iran, we have an Iranian threat on our borders now, in the shape of Hamas on our southern border, in the shape of Hezbollah on our northern border. What are we doing about that? Every couple of years, we have a little war with them. We kill a few of theirs, they kill a few of ours, and we go back to square one. We spend 20% of our budget. When we talk about the cost of living, we have to take into account we spend 20% of our budget on defense. The Western European countries spend less than 2%. So if we are spending all that money, surely we can achieve more than just a tie with Hamas and Hezbollah. Let's give Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, and all our enemies around the world their biggest nightmare and give the next defense ministry to Avigdor Lieberman. Because if Avigdor Lieberman is defense minister, there will be a fourth round, and that will be it against Hamas. There will be a third round against Hezbollah, and that will be it. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to get to the podium?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question of the panel, and then we'll wrap up with your permission. Because Uri Bank has just joined us, I'll give him the right of first response. I think I speak for many of us in the audience when we go to the polls on Tuesday. Some of us, maybe many of us, are not sure whether to vote for a big party like Likud or Zionist Union, or for a smaller party. Uri Bank, your response: why should we vote for your party rather than the bigger party on the right?
We're short on time, so everyone's going to have 1 minute.
This is the last
Yeah.
question, and then you'll have a chance to sum up.
And 1 minute each, please.
Shavua Tov to everybody, and thanks for the question, because I know many of you are debating between the Beit Yehudi and the Likud because of this very issue. And you need to understand that the law in Israel says that the president gives the chance to the person who has the largest bloc and not the largest party. We're the only ones who came out very strong from the beginning saying we are going to recommend Benjamin Netanyahu as the next prime minister as well. Based on the numbers, he will be the next prime minister, and the question is who is going to be a senior partner. Is it going to be Tzipi Livni, or is it going to be Naftali Bennett? And if you believe in Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Torat Yisrael values that we've represented, if you're proud of Naftali Bennett going out into the international press and stating our cases, which is what needs to be done, and saying that we will capitulate no further land to the Arabs, you know that he needs to be there right next to Netanyahu with his hand on that steering wheel, because every time that Prime Minister Netanyahu tries to break to the left and do freeze on settlements or give up murdering terrorists, you need the Beit Yehudi and Naftali Bennett right along his side.
Time.
If we don't have a strong showing, then he won't take us into his government. Unfortunately, he's preferred in the past to go with the left, to go with Livni and Barak. If you believe that Bennett needs to be there, please vote for the Beit Yehudi.
I think the next two people who should answer are the people from parties who are really in danger of possibly not passing the threshold, according to recent polls, because of this debate. So, Mr. Zaki, go ahead.
I will say the following. I agree with Uri Bank, and I think if you're right-leaning and you want to secure a right-leaning policy, vote for the Jewish Home. If you're left-leaning and you want to secure a change in Israel for the better, we believe, vote for Meretz. Because Meretz, in all of its history since its founding in '92, only sat in a labor-led government or governments with Rabin and Barak. We are going to recommend Herzog, and we'll only sit in a coalition.
And Livni, right?
We're going to recommend Herzog.
Plus Livni.
You need to recommend one member of Knesset.
Package, no, it's a package.
We're going to recommend Herzog. Speak with Nachman, ask him, what about the rotation? It's not our duty.
They go in, that's a one package.
Okay, but look.
In 2 years.
I'll tell you the following.
Okay.
Please note.
I'll tell you the
Thank
following,
you.
Benny. I'll tell you the following. We will be much
my microphone.
better off with Tzipi Livni as prime minister than with Benjamin Netanyahu. That's our truth. But the only danger, my only fear is that Herzog and Livni, both of them already sat in a Netanyahu-led coalition. And if you truly want Herzog to be prime minister, you have to vote for Meretz, because otherwise your vote might get to a Netanyahu-led coalition.
Mr. Perry, unlike Mr. Bank and Mr. Zaki, your party hasn't been campaigning on this issue, but I imagine it's important to you too.
The threshold.
The threshold.
I'm really not worried. We'll be far closer to double figures than the polls are suggesting. But I want to talk about something else at the moment. I want to talk about something that has no practical application for, I would assume, anyone in this room, but really sits deep in our hearts. For the last 6 years, you know what really worried my boss, Foreign Minister Victor Lieberman, more than anything else that came across his desk? Last year's Pew survey results. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Which showed 70% assimilation rates in the United States. And by the way, it's not that much better in Britain, Europe, and other places. Yisrael Beitenu has put as part of their platform, because this isn't a vote grabber, because none of these people vote, but we are committed that in the next government we will give hundreds of millions of dollars, which will be matched by overseas diaspora money, to create an international Jewish and Zionist school system, because it cannot be in the United States, in France, in Argentina, and many other places around the world that children
you,
will
Mr.
opt
Perry.
out of being
I
Jewish and
wanna cut you
Zionist
short,
because they
'cause that
can't
was
afford
not
to
the
send their kids to
question.
school. This is what we promise.
Thank you. I'd like everyone else to stay on topic. If you don't want to answer the question, you're welcome to pass. Okay. Yeah, let's.
I want to answer that question.
Yeah, no, okay, but we'll, all right, we'll let the smaller parties, and then we'll do the big ones. So Ambassador Oren, go ahead.
We want to be
You
a
have
large
minute.
party. I come to you after a couple of years in a country that has a two-party system, and I want to tell you that the large parties are overrated. They're completely bogged down in political polarization there, and they can't get anything done. And the Knesset actually gets much more done than the U.S. Congress does right now. The last coalition had very large parties in it, and part of their mandate called for lowering housing prices, solving the housing crisis, lowering the cost of living, and they failed. So big parties are not a panacea for the country's problems. They are parties that are actually committed to bringing about a change. Now, I don't have any, good, props with me, but I think all of you probably have one of these things with you. It's a cell phone. And there's only one person who's made a material change in your life here by bringing down the cost of cell phones, and that's Moshe Kachlon. He broke up the cell phone monopolies. My hand used to shake it every month when my son's bill would come in, his high school bill, from using a cell phone. And the state of Israel made 5 billion shekels off the breakup of the cell phone monopolies. That's your answer. Last point. When you go into the polls on Tuesday, and if you want to vote for a large party, know that there's a 50% chance that your vote is going to be lost. It's going to be like betting on the red and black in a roulette table. If you vote for the Kulanu party, we're the only party that says we'll join every coalition that says that will give us the keys to to carrying out our promises to our voters. If you vote for Kulanu, you will have a 100% chance of making a change.
MK Lipman, do you want to answer? We're going to let the big parties go last.
You should vote based on your values. You should vote based on the parties that are talking about the issues, and there are sometimes the smaller parties, or the center parties, so to speak, deal with core issues. I want to highlight 4 in the minute that I have. On the Haredi issue, on integration to society, my biggest fear going to these elections is the larger side parties on both sides that will listen to the slogan of the Haredi parties of turn the clock back on all the progress that's been made. We're the only party talking about making sure that we keep the progress going. Religion and state in general. We have laws, legislation in the pipeline to get to a point where we have no agunot in Israel, letting secular Israel breathe somewhat in terms of religion and state issues. Corruption hasn't been talked about tonight. And legislation which failed in the last Knesset, unfortunately, which we co-sponsored, that someone who's found guilty of moral turpitude while in office can never come back as an MK or a minister. These are laws which impact all of our lives. And finally, a party that talks about Olim, a party of Olim, from all immigrant backgrounds that are going to make life better for all immigrants in Israel. The larger parties tend to move away from that. Middle-sized parties can get that done.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Begin, you have 1 minute. And you have water bottles here if you want to make like the head of your party for your...
Myself? Let me be personal, which I seldom do. You heard it. I think it's an amazing phenomenon that even here tonight, the representative from Meretz praised Prime Minister Menachem Begin for his action back in 1981. Of course, there is totally no analogy between that situation and the Iranian situation. I think it represents a non-mature view of world affairs and the Middle East, but it represents a phenomenon. My father and teacher has been mentioned during this campaign in unprecedented numbers, almost difficult to understand, and please note that.
Your time is up.
I'm sorry?
Oh, no.
All right, finish. Don't worry about it.
Go on. I want to hear it.
We were mentioned. My family was mentioned, right?
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I knew Menachem Begin. And I never pretend to speak on his behalf. I'm not his spokesman. I never guess what would he have been saying to date on this or the other issue. There are pretenders in the political market. And now, excuse me, Michael, the leader of your party is one of these pretenders. Here's a new heir to Prime Minister Begin. I would say to the real Begin, okay? I think it's not right. Of course, he can pretend in whatever way he would like to, but don't be deceived. It's a very tricky game. I think that you know that Moshe Kachlon, a friend, is investing a lot of effort through this pretense to suck right-wing voters to the Israeli left camp and to Prime Minister Herzog and Prime Minister Tzipi Livni through the Kulanu party. They are constructing a pipe through which they'll suck votes under false pretense and move them to Mr. Herzog and Mrs. Livni. I think it's very dangerous. I think that Michael told you there's a 50% chance that they would align themselves with labor. Right? Be careful. Be careful. Vote for a party for which you are certain 100% that it will support Prime Minister Netanyahu and protect our country. Vote Likud.
Have to
Okay.
respond. No.
I just want to clarify something. I
Very
think-
short response.
Okay.
For the record, Moshe Kachlon never compared himself to Begin. He does. He never said. He did say that he represents the spirit of the Likud under Begin, which was a party that came, that won the 1977 elections by representing the working class, by representing the poor. And where is that today? And I think it's a very legitimate question, Benny.
Okay.
You're not doing it today. That's why Kulanu came into being. If Likud had been fulfilling its historic mission, Kulanu never would have come into being.
Please tell the audience, are you going to recommend Mr. Netanyahu or Mrs. Livni?
And I will tell
Through
you,
Mr. Herzog.
and I will tell you categorically,
Yeah,
we
please
will
do,
join any coalition. What I said before.
That's
Any
right,
coalition
any
that will
coalition.
give us the tools
That's
to
right.
fill
I think-
our promises to our voters.
Now you
I
know
think
it
the
all.
points have been made,
I
and
don't
we'll
think
let
we've-
MK
we said that from
Shai.
the very first day of this
Yes.
election. We're saying it on the
Yeah,
last
the
day of the election.
electorate should draw a
Okay.
conclusion.
Right, they are.
I just want to clarify a remark I made in case somebody misinterpreted and thought I was being rude. When I was talking about the water bottles, there was an analogy the Prime Minister made between how full a water bottle is and what a coalition is. I was not referring to a different scandal that is not relevant today. Now, onwards to MK Shai. If I could put on my political analyst hat, I think that this question is especially interesting for your party because on the one hand, you want to increase your gap with Likud, and on the other hand, if Meretz falls,
U.S. relations when it comes to defense and security. We need them all the time, and we need the president. So I keep saying the message was the right one. The way it was done was not. Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Zaki will be next, and I want to remind everyone to please be polite to him.
But just give me the time to stand up.
Of course.
Look, I'm not sure how this audience is divided from some of at least the booing over there. I got a feeling that it's not equivalent to how the Jewish vote in the United States goes. And correct me if I'm wrong. And you know, it kind of interested me, what threat was Netanyahu trying to kill in Washington 2 weeks ago? I have a feeling it was more about the Obama threat in his thinking than the Iranian threat. And to do what he did, if he really is about stopping the Iranian threat through Washington and even through Congress, he did a very lousy job. Because now, less Democrats are willing to align with Republicans in order to have a better deal as he portrayed it. Now, you know, the GOP folks in D.C. call Netanyahu our senator from Jerusalem. Israel cannot be a partisan issue in the United States. That's a strategic threat on the state of Israel. One of our biggest assets is the fact that there is a consensus about our security, and even more so because of the way the Jewish vote goes in the United States. And you know, I saw it when I was giving talks in universities. The younger generation drifts apart from Israel because of its policies, because of its current leadership, the hardline leadership of Mr. Netanyahu. And what he did in Washington 2 weeks ago was accelerating a very dangerous process for Israel and for the connection of the two biggest and most important Jewish communities, first and foremost Israel, but we must acknowledge that the Jewish community in the United States is very important, and we must maintain a very close connection with it.
Thank you.
I have a one-line response to that, because it said something here, I don't know, if Benny doesn't respond to it, I'm going to respond to it.
Very, very
And
briefly.
I say this only because someone who worked with the Prime Minister for a long time, nobody can question his sincerity